3 casino supervisors just broke their silence about the manipulation tactics used to keep you glued to slot machines for hours. What they're revealing about these 10 psychological tricks could save you thousands of dollars. And the casino industry is furious this information is getting out. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how casinos program your brain to keep spinning, even when you're losing money hand over fist. The psychology behind these techniques is so effective that some behavioral scientists have called it borderline unethical. Let me break down all 10 tricks, starting with number 10. Casinos have spent millions engineering slot machines to make you believe you have some control over the outcome. A supervisor who worked at 3 major Las Vegas properties for over 12 years explains that this illusion is one of the most powerful tools in their arsenal. Modern slot machines feature interactive bonus rounds where you pick treasure chests, spin wheels, or select hidden symbols. You press buttons, make choices, and feel like your decisions matter. But here's what the supervisor revealed. Every outcome is predetermined the moment the bonus triggers. Your choices are completely meaningless. The random number generator already decided you're winning $47 before you even start picking those treasure chests. The game just creates an elaborate show to make you feel like you earned it through skill. This illusion of control keeps you engaged far longer than if you simply watched reels spin. One particularly manipulative example is the skill stop feature on some older machines. Players could press a button to stop each reel individually, making them feel like expert timing could influence the outcome. Casino supervisors confirm that these stops were pure theater. The result was determined before you ever pressed that first button. There was a regular player named Marcus who became convinced he'd developed a system for timing the skill stops perfectly. He practiced for months, taking notes, tracking patterns. Supervisors watched him play the same machine 6 hours a day for nearly 8 months straight. Marcus genuinely believed his skill was improving. In reality, he lost over $38,000 during that period, chasing a control that never existed. What makes this trick particularly insidious is that it transforms gambling into something that feels like a game of skill. When you lose at a game of pure chance, you might walk away. But when you lose at something you think involves skill, you blame yourself and believe practice will make you better. So you keep playing, keep losing, and keep thinking the next session will be different because you've learned something. Casino designers understand that humans desperately want to believe they have agency over outcomes. We're psychologically uncomfortable with pure randomness. By giving you buttons to press and choices to make, casinos exploit this deep-seated need for control while ensuring that control is completely imaginary. Walk into any casino and you might think the machines are randomly scattered across the floor. A supervisor who spent 15 years in casino operations management revealed that every single machine placement is carefully calculated to maximize revenue. Nothing about a casino floor is accidental. The loosest machines, meaning those with slightly better payout percentages, are placed in highly visible locations, near entrances, main walkways, and anywhere crowds naturally gather. When these machines pay out, bells ring, lights flash, and everyone nearby sees and hears the win. This creates what the industry calls win visibility. Meanwhile, the tightest machines with the worst odds are tucked away in corners, near bathrooms, and in less trafficked areas. Supervisors explain that players who wander to these isolated spots are usually already committed gamblers who'll play regardless of location. They don't need the same level of psychological encouragement as casual players near the entrance. Casinos also place their most addictive games, those with frequent small payouts and engaging bonus features, right near the center of the gaming floor. These machines create a constant symphony of winning sounds that echo throughout the casino. Even if you're across the room playing a different game, you're subconsciously registering all those wins and feeling motivated to keep playing. There's a well-documented strategy involving machine placement near exits. Supervisors confirmed that casinos specifically avoid placing good machines near exits. They don't want someone to hit a nice win and immediately have an easy path to leave. Instead, to reach the exit from most good machines, you have to walk past dozens of other tempting games. One supervisor shared a story about a player named Jennifer who always played the same row of machines near the center of the casino. Over 18 months, Jennifer lost approximately $52,000. She later told staff she never understood why she kept losing when she constantly heard people winning around her. The supervisor explained that she was surrounded by the showcase machines designed to create noise and excitement, while her actual machines had terrible payout rates. The wins she heard were real, just not from the machines she was playing. Casino architects and floor managers spend weeks planning machine placement using heat maps of foot traffic, psychological studies on player behavior, and data on which machine types perform best in which locations. A machine that might lose money in one spot could become highly profitable 20 feet away, simply because of how human psychology responds to the environment. This trick is so psychologically powerful that it's been the subject of academic research. A supervisor with access to programming documentation from multiple manufacturers revealed something shocking. Slot machines are specifically programmed to show you near misses far more often than random chance would dictate. A near miss is when you almost hit a winning combination. 2 jackpot symbols land on the pay line, and the third one stops just above or below it. Your brain sees that you were so close to winning big. Here's the truth. That wasn't a near miss. It was a loss, programmed to look like you almost won. The random number generator determines the outcome in microseconds. The visual representation of spinning reels is just a show for your benefit. Manufacturers program these virtual reels to display near misses at a rate much higher than probability would naturally create. Some machines show near misses on nearly 30% of losing spins. Supervisors explain that near misses are devastatingly effective at keeping players engaged. Neuroscience research shows that near misses activate the same reward pathways in your brain as actual wins. Your brain releases dopamine when you see those 2 jackpot symbols line up, even though you won nothing. This dopamine hit tricks you into feeling like you're getting close and that a big win is imminent. One particularly cruel example involves progressive jackpot symbols. A supervisor described watching a man play a Wheel of Fortune machine for 9 hours straight. During that session, the progressive jackpot symbols landed in a near-miss configuration at least 40 times. 2 symbols on the pay line, 1 just off. Each time, the player became more convinced that he was due to hit it. He kept playing, kept losing, and never hit that jackpot. The machine was programmed to show him near misses to keep him hooked. There's a documented case of a woman named Patricia who developed what supervisors recognized as a classic near-miss addiction. She played penny slots, but focused obsessively on the bonus symbols. When 2 bonus symbols appeared and the third just barely missed, she'd become visibly agitated and immediately play faster. Supervisors observed this pattern over several months. Patricia convinced herself she was learning the rhythm of when bonuses would hit based on these near misses. In reality, she lost over $19,000 chasing patterns that didn't exist. The most disturbing aspect of near-miss programming is that it's completely legal. Regulatory agencies in most jurisdictions allow manufacturers to program near misses as long as the overall payout percentage meets minimum requirements. Casinos know exactly what they're doing, and they're using cutting-edge neuroscience to manipulate your brain into misinterpreting losses as near wins. Casinos have perfected the art of making you forget about time and money. A supervisor who worked in slot operations for 11 years explained that every element of the casino environment is designed to distort your perception of these two critical resources. First, time. You've probably noticed that casinos have no clocks on the walls and very few windows. The lighting is carefully controlled to remain constant, whether it's noon or midnight. Supervisors confirmed this is absolutely intentional. They want you to enter a timeless bubble where hours evaporate without you noticing. Slot machines contribute to this time distortion through their pacing. Modern machines can complete a spin in under 3 seconds. If you're playing quickly, you could be spinning 40 to 50 times per hour without even realizing it. Each spin feels like a discrete event, but you're actually in a rapid-fire cycle that devours time. One supervisor described a psychological phenomenon they observed repeatedly. Players would sit down just for a few minutes and look up to discover 4 or 5 hours had passed. These weren't problem gamblers or addicts. These were casual players who'd been absorbed into what psychologists call a flow state, where time consciousness disappears entirely. The machines are specifically designed to induce this state. Now, money. Casinos have worked hard to make you forget you're gambling with real money. The most obvious example is chips at table games, but slot machines have their own methods. Credits replace dollars. You're not betting $5 per spin, you're betting 50 credits. This numerical distance makes the money feel less real. Ticket in, ticket out systems have made this even worse. You no longer see or touch coins. You insert a $20 bill, and suddenly you have credits on a screen. Those credits don't feel like real money. They feel like points in a game. When you cash out, you get a slip of paper, not a satisfying stack of coins or bills. The psychological impact is enormous. A supervisor shared a story about a player named David who played exclusively penny slots. David thought he was being responsible, betting only 1 cent per line. What he didn't realize was that the machine had 50 lines, and he was actually betting 50 cents per spin. The machine displayed his credits in pennies, showing numbers in the thousands. David felt rich when he had 3,000 credits, not realizing that was only $30. Over 6 months, David lost over $12,000 playing penny slots, never fully grasping how much money he was actually wagering, because the credit system obscured the reality. Supervisors confirmed that casino operators are acutely aware of this psychological effect. When some jurisdictions proposed requiring machines to display losses and dollar amounts rather than credits, casino lobbying groups fought hard against it. They understand that transparency would reduce play, because players would be confronted with the actual cost of their gambling in real time. This might be the most deceptive trick in the entire industry. A supervisor with 17 years of experience called it the scam that nobody talks about. Modern multi-line slot machines have been programmed to celebrate losses as if they were wins. Here's how it works. You bet 50 cents on a spin across 25 pay lines. The reels spin and you hit a small combination that pays back 30 cents. You just lost 20 cents. But what happens on the machine? Bells ring, lights flash, winning sounds play, and your credit total updates. Your brain registers this as a win, even though you literally lost money on that spin. Industry insiders call these losses disguised as wins, or LDWs. Research has shown that your brain responds to LDWs almost identically to actual wins. You get the dopamine hit, the sense of success, the motivation to keep playing. But your bankroll is slowly shrinking with every single one of these fake wins. Supervisors explained that LDWs are most prevalent on penny and nickel multi-line machines. These games often have 30, 40, or even 50 pay lines. You're betting $1 or more per spin, but because it's spread across so many lines, you hit small combinations constantly. Almost every spin pays something. The machine is in a near constant state of celebration, and you're losing money the entire time. One particularly egregious example involves a machine type that supervisors say they refused to service because it made them uncomfortable. This machine had 100 pay lines and celebrated any win over 2 cents. Players betting $2 per spin would hit combinations paying back 40 or 50 cents, and the machine would explode with excitement. Players walked away from hours-long sessions feeling like they'd won frequently, never realizing they'd lost hundreds or thousands of dollars. There was a regular player named Susan who exclusively played these high-line penny machines. Supervisors observed her over 14 months playing 3 to 4 days per week. Susan consistently told other players how much she loved her machine because she won all the time. She showed them her player tracking statements that listed hundreds of wins per session. What Susan didn't understand was that her wins were almost all LDWs. She was losing money on probably 70% of her spins, but the machine celebrated them as wins. Over those 14 months, Susan lost approximately $43,000 while believing she was a successful player. The psychological impact of LDWs cannot be overstated. They completely distort your perception of how you're performing. After a session filled with lights and sounds and celebrations, your brain remembers winning, even if your wallet is significantly lighter. This causes you to return more frequently and play longer because you have false memories of success. Supervisors revealed that when some jurisdictions began discussing regulations that would prevent machines from celebrating losses, casino operators fought back hard. Internal documents reportedly showed that LDWs increased playtime by over 30% on affected machines. Casinos knew exactly what they were doing, and they knew it was working. Slot machines use the same psychological principles that B.F. Skinner discovered: make rats pull levers compulsively. A supervisor who studied behavioral psychology before working in the casino industry was disturbed by how directly manufacturers applied Skinner's research to slot design. The most addictive reinforcement schedule is called variable ratio. This means rewards come after an unpredictable number of actions. A rat that gets food after every 10 lever pulls will pull the lever. But a rat that gets food after a random number of pulls, sometimes 3, sometimes 40, sometimes 15, will pull that lever obsessively. The unpredictability creates powerful compulsion. Slot machines operate on variable ratio reinforcement schedules. You never know when the next payout is coming. It might be the next spin. It might be 50 spins from now. This uncertainty keeps you locked in a repetitive behavior loop. Just one more spin, just one more. The next one could be the big win. Supervisors explain that manufacturers carefully calibrate these schedules to maximize engagement. If wins come too frequently, you get bored. If they come too rarely, you give up. The sweet spot is a carefully calculated rate that keeps you just hopeful enough to continue, but frustrated enough to keep trying harder. One supervisor described an internal document from a manufacturer that outlined the optimal frustration zone. This was the mathematical range where players experienced enough small wins to stay motivated, but enough losses to keep them chasing. The document literally graphed out how to keep players in a state of perpetual hope and disappointment. Video poker machines provide a clear example of variable ratio scheduling. A supervisor analyzed payout data from several machines over a 3-month period. The machines were programmed to deliver small wins roughly every 5 to 7 hands, medium wins every 30 to 40 hands, and rare large wins every several hundred hands. Players sat for hours caught in this cycle, always feeling like the next big hand was coming soon. There was a case involving a man named Robert who became so conditioned to this reinforcement schedule that he developed physical responses. Supervisors noticed that Robert would become visibly anxious when he went more than 20 or 30 spins without any payout. His hands would shake slightly, he'd play faster, and he'd increase his bet size. Robert had been classically conditioned to expect rewards at certain intervals, and when they didn't come, he experienced withdrawal-like symptoms. Over 2 years, Robert lost over $76,000, unable to break free from the behavioral loop the machines had trained into him. The most disturbing revelation from supervisors was that manufacturers actively studied gambling addiction research not to prevent harm, but to refine their reinforcement schedules. They wanted to understand exactly what made certain patterns of wins and losses so compelling, and then they programmed those patterns into their machines. It's not accidental that slots are addictive. It's engineered. Every beep, jingle, and musical flourish coming from a slot machine has been carefully designed by audio engineers and psychologists to keep you playing. A supervisor who worked closely with machine manufacturers revealed that more research and development money goes into sound design than almost any other aspect of slot machines. Winning sounds are pitched in specific frequencies that trigger pleasure responses in the human brain. These aren't random jingles. They're scientifically optimized audio cues designed to make you feel good. When you win, even a small amount, the machine plays sounds that your brain interprets as rewarding and exciting. But here's the manipulation. Machines also play upbeat, positive sounds during losses. When reels are spinning, you hear anticipatory music that builds excitement. When you miss a win by one symbol, you hear sounds that suggest you're getting close. The machine is training you to associate the entire experience with positive emotions, not just actual wins. Supervisors explain that manufacturers test hundreds of sound variations on focus groups, monitoring physiological responses like heart rate, skin conductivity, and pupil dilation. They're literally measuring which sounds make your body respond most strongly, then programming those sounds into the machines. One particularly manipulative technique involves the use of ascending tones. When a bonus feature is triggered, most machines play a rising musical scale. Your brain interprets ascending tones as building towards something positive. It creates anticipation and excitement even before you know what you've won. This means you're experiencing the emotional high of winning before the machine has even revealed your actual prize, which might be disappointing. Volume is also carefully controlled. Casinos keep background noise at levels that make slot machines sounds clearly audible throughout the gaming floor. When someone wins, everyone hears it, but the machines don't broadcast losses with the same volume. Supervisors confirmed that this asymmetric sound design creates an environment where wins are socially shared and celebrated, while losses happen in relative silence. There was a documented case involving a woman named Michelle who told supervisors she couldn't understand why she kept playing a particular machine even though she usually lost. She said something about the game just felt good. Supervisors explained that the machine she favored had some of the most sophisticated sound design in the casino. Every spin, win, or lose was accompanied by pleasant musical tones. The bonus trigger sound was particularly dopamine-inducing. Michelle had become conditioned to seek out that specific audio experience, regardless of whether she was actually winning money. Over 9 months, she lost $27,000, chasing sounds that made her brain feel good. Some newer machines even adjust their audio based on your play patterns. If you haven't won in a while, the machine might increase the intensity or frequency of near-miss sounds to keep you engaged. If you just had a big win, the machine might play more subdued sounds to calm you down and keep you playing rather than cashing out. Supervisors revealed that when regulators proposed requiring machines to play sounds for losses that were equally prominent as win sounds, casino operators strongly opposed it. They argued it would be too annoying for players. The real reason, according to supervisors, is that it would force players to consciously acknowledge every single loss, destroying the positive emotion bubble that sound design creates. Every time you insert your player's card into a slot machine, you're giving the casino an incredible amount of data about your behavior. A supervisor who worked in player development for 8 years revealed just how much information casinos collect and how they use it to keep you gambling. Casinos track every single bet you make, how long you play, what games you prefer, when you typically visit, and most importantly, at what point you usually quit. This data builds a comprehensive psychological profile that casinos use to manipulate your behavior with scary precision. One of the most common techniques is loss rebate offers. The casino knows exactly how much you typically lose in a session. Let's say you usually lose about $300 before quitting. The casino will send you an offer for free play or a rebate that's calculated to bring you back. But here's the trick. They're not giving you enough to win back your losses. They're giving you just enough to get you in the door, knowing you'll likely lose that amount plus more from your own pocket. Supervisors explain that casino marketing departments use sophisticated algorithms to determine the minimum incentive needed to bring each player back. They're not being generous. They're making calculated investments in future losses. Every free dollar of play generates an average of $8 to $12 in additional gambling from the player. The data also reveals your tilt point, which is the emotional state where you start making irrational decisions. Maybe you usually play 50 cents per spin, but after losing $300, you bump up to $2 per spin, trying to win it back. The casino system flags this behavior. Next time you're approaching that loss threshold, a host might appear with a free drink or a small comp to keep you comfortable and playing. There was a player named George, whose behavior was extensively tracked over 3 years. Data showed that George would typically play for 2 to 3 hours, lose around $500, then leave frustrated. But if a host approached him at the 90-minute mark with a free meal comp, George would take a break, eat, and return to play for another 2 or 3 hours, ultimately losing significantly more. Casino management programmed their system to alert hosts whenever George hit the 90-minute mark. This single intervention increased George's average loss per visit by over 60%. Casinos also use your data to time their marketing. They know which day of the week you typically visit and what time you usually arrive. They'll send you offers that expire right around your usual gambling time, creating urgency and habit reinforcement. The goal is to turn occasional gambling into a regular routine. The most disturbing revelation was about loss limit targeting. Supervisors explained that casinos can identify players who appear to be gambling with money they can't afford to lose. These players show erratic behavior, chase losses aggressively, and often exhibit signs of problem gambling. Rather than helping these players, some casinos target them with more aggressive marketing because they're highly profitable. One supervisor quit over this practice, stating they couldn't ethically participate in what they saw as exploitation of addiction. Player tracking also enables something called Predictive intervention. The casino system can predict, based on your patterns, when you're likely to quit. Right before that predicted quit point, you might receive a slot ticket notification, a prize draw entry, or another incentive designed to extend your play. These interventions are delivered at precisely calculated moments when you're most susceptible to continuing. Ask any regular slot player, and they'll tell you about hot and cold machines. A supervisor who spent 13 years on casino floors says this belief is the most profitable myth in the entire industry, and casinos do absolutely nothing to correct it because it keeps people playing. Here's the truth. Every single spin on a modern slot machine is completely independent of every other spin. The machine has no memory. It doesn't know or care what happened on the previous spin, the previous 100 spins, or the previous 1,000,000 spins. Each result is determined by a random number generator in the microsecond you press the button. A machine that just paid out a jackpot is exactly as likely to pay out another jackpot on the very next spin as a machine that hasn't paid in weeks. The random number generator doesn't know or care about previous outcomes. The concept of a machine being due to hit is mathematically nonsense, but players desperately want to believe in patterns. Supervisors observed thousands of players who would watch machines, timing how long since the last bonus triggered, convinced they could identify which machines were ready to pay. These players were wasting their time and money chasing a pattern that doesn't exist. The myth persists partly because of confirmation bias. A player sits down at a machine that feels lucky, hits a bonus within 30 bound, and spins and says, "I knew this machine was hot." They forget about the 12 times they sat at machines that felt lucky and lost. The human brain is wired to recognize patterns, even when none exist. And casinos benefit enormously from this cognitive bias. Supervisors shared multiple stories of players who developed elaborate systems for identifying hot machines. One man kept a notebook tracking every machine in the casino, recording when they last paid bonuses, trying to create a prediction model. He spent 2 years gathering data and refining his system. In reality, he lost over $53,000 during that period, chasing patterns in purely random events. Another common belief is that casinos can tighten or loosen machines remotely. Supervisors confirmed this is technically possible with modern server-based gaming systems, but it's heavily regulated and rarely done. More importantly, casinos don't need to do it. The mathematics already ensure the house wins, but the belief itself is profitable because it keeps players hopping from machine to machine, searching for the loose ones. There's also a widespread belief that using your player card makes machines pay less. Supervisors laughed at this one. The card simply tracks your play for comp purposes. It has zero effect on the random number generator. But this belief is so common that many players refuse to use their cards, giving up free comps based on a myth. The most profitable aspect of this myth is machine hopping. Players will sit at a machine for 20 minutes, lose some money, decide it's cold, and move to a different machine. They repeat this pattern for hours, never realizing that they're simply experiencing normal variance. Each time they move, they're starting fresh with a new machine that has the exact same odds as the one they just left. But the feeling of taking action, of making strategic decisions about which machine to play, keeps them engaged and gambling. One supervisor described watching a player named Thomas who would hover around the slot floor, watching machines. When he saw someone leave after playing a while without a bonus, Thomas would swoop in, convinced the machine was now loaded. Thomas played this way for 16 months, genuinely believing he'd discovered a winning strategy. The casino's player tracking data showed Thomas lost over $41,000 during that period. The machines he chose performed no better than random selection would have predicted. But Thomas's belief in his system kept him coming back session after session. The number one trick that keeps you spinning is something supervisors call perpetual motion design. Every single element of modern slot machines has been engineered to keep you in a continuous cycle of play with as few interruptions as possible. Traditional slot machines required you to insert money, pull a handle, wait for the reels to stop, collect any winnings, and then make a conscious decision to play again. Each spin had a clear beginning and end. Modern machines have eliminated almost all of these natural stopping points. Supervisors explain that manufacturers deliberately design machines to create what's called continuous play. There's no handle to pull anymore, just a button. You don't collect physical coins, so there's no pause to count your winnings. The machine auto-plays if you hold the button. Everything has been streamlined to eliminate any moment where you might stop and think about what you're doing. The speed of modern machines is part of this trick. Older mechanical slots took 8 to 12 seconds per spin. Modern video slots can complete a spin in under 3 seconds. This increased speed means you can play 20 to 30 spins per minute without even trying. You're making decisions and losing money 3 to 4 times faster than players from previous generations. Many machines now feature a quick spin button that makes the reels stop almost instantly. Supervisors revealed that players who use quick spin features typically lose money 30 to 40% faster than players who watch the reels spin normally. The quick spin eliminates any suspense or processing time between bets. You're in a pure action loop with zero downtime for reflection. Autoplay features are another perpetual motion tool. You can literally set the machine to spin continuously without pressing anything. Supervisors have observed players set autoplay for 100 spins, then watch their credits evaporate in minutes. Some players don't even watch. They set autoplay and look at their phones, checking back occasionally to see if they've won anything. The button placement is also engineered for perpetual motion. The spin button is always the largest, most accessible button on the interface. It's positioned exactly where your thumb naturally rests. You can literally hammer that button repeatedly without thinking, creating a mindless rhythm of continuous play. There was a player named David whose case perfectly illustrated perpetual motion design. Supervisors observed David playing a modern video slot for 7 consecutive hours. Using surveillance footage and transaction data, they calculated that David completed over 4,200 spins during that session. That's an average of 1 spin every 6 seconds for 7 straight hours. David was in such a deep flow state that he didn't eat, didn't take bathroom breaks, and barely looked away from the screen. By the end of that session, David had lost $11,000. When security finally checked on him because he'd been stationary so long, David seemed confused about how much time had passed. He'd been completely absorbed in the perpetual motion of continuous play. Modern machines also eliminate the concept of a session endpoint. On older machines, when you ran out of credits, the machine went silent and dark. It was a clear signal that you'd lost and should walk away. Modern machines never go completely dark. Even with 0 credits, the screen remains animated and inviting. You can insert more money with a single button press and be immediately back in action. There's no psychological break that might cause you to reconsider. Supervisors revealed that manufacturers explicitly design against natural stopping points. Internal documents from one major manufacturer outlined a goal of creating frictionless engagement. They wanted to eliminate every moment where the player might pause and make a rational decision to stop playing. Every button press, every animation, every sound was optimized to maintain momentum and keep the player locked in continuous action. The cumulative effect of perpetual motion design is that players enter trance-like states where conscious decision-making shuts down. You're not choosing to play each spin, you're simply continuing a motion that's already in progress. Supervisors said they could identify these players easily. They had a glazed look, their movements became mechanical and repetitive, and they seemed almost unconscious despite being awake and active. One supervisor shared a particularly disturbing observation. They noticed that players in perpetual motion states would often continue playing even when they clearly needed to leave. A woman kept playing despite multiple phone calls from what sounded like worried family members. A man continued playing even though he'd mentioned to a cocktail server that he needed to pick up his kids from school. The perpetual motion was so powerful that it overrode normal priorities and responsibilities. The reason this is the #1 trick is simple. All the other tricks work better when you're in continuous play. The sound manipulation, the near misses, the reinforcement schedules, all of it becomes more effective when there are no breaks in the action. Perpetual motion design ensures you stay in a vulnerable psychological state where all of the casino's other manipulation techniques have maximum impact. Supervisors who spoke out about these tactics said they felt uncomfortable watching players lose money to these engineered psychological traps. They emphasized that slots aren't just games of chance anymore. They're sophisticated behavior manipulation devices built on decades of psychological research and refined through constant data analysis. Every aspect of their design has one purpose: to keep you spinning until your money is gone. So there you have it, all 10 tricks that casinos use to keep you glued to slot machines. The next time you're in a casino, pay attention to how many of these techniques you notice in action. The flashing lights, the celebration sounds, the easy-to-press buttons, all of it is carefully designed manipulation. If you found this information valuable, subscribe for more insider casino revelations they don't want you to know about. Understanding these tricks won't guarantee you'll win, but at least you'll know exactly what you're up against when you sit down to play.